Welcome to another workflow video. This is using 1.6. I'm going to take you kind of end to end using the tool, starting with the video, how to extract it, all the way through to post-shot. So I'm using Insta 360 Studio. The main things to remember is basically you want a lat long video, and in Insta 360, that's basically got two settings here. You've got the reframe, so you can kind of pan around, and then you've got the 360. So really, I set this. The other key thing is to turn on direction lock as well, to keep you in the same sort of facing position that you are relative to the camera. It's quite useful. If you do any grading, sometimes I'll turn on color plus. It can be a bit extreme sometimes, but you can kind of change exposure. Anything you want to do here, remember that that's going to get baked into your final post-shot output. So if it's very washed out, it will end up being very washed out. Do a little bit of grading, but tend to want to get the video as close to what you want to do, unless you're going through sort of convoluted logarithmic look to get to linear and sRGB and all the color space fun stuff. Anyway, for exporting, though in simplest terms, is set this up, do any grading that you want, make sure direction lock is on, hit export, and then you must switch this on to 360 video. I tend to be at 265 just to avoid compression artifacts and stuff like that. You can generate very large files, these up to a couple of gig, so just remember that, and then set this to your folder when you do the export. So once you've done that, we'll bring up the app. So in the folder, just keep the same structure, don't move anything around. There's a debug mode which you can run if you're running into GPU errors and stuff like that. But generally, just run the exe, and then we'll have a look at the test demo video. So this particular one, if you use media player rather than VLC, that gives you a lat long look. So this is a minute and a half walking around just in this street section, and so I sort of do linear, straight line, come back, go a bit further away, another straight line, and so on. So as I kind of step over, covering the area, and then I did a bit of a middle row as well. Some people extra at the end. So that's the video. To use the tool, you basically just drag the video on. Once you, for the first time that you're doing this, it won't load any frames that are there, but if the frames existed, we'd extracted them, then they would also load up and you get the preview. Just be aware in terms of how the software works. It needs to have extracted frames to be able to load up to the preview. It does not load the video. Okay, so top of the GUI is basically for extraction, and the second part is for splitting that extraction up, so extraction from the video frames. So what I tend to do is need to figure out the separation first of all. So say if I set this at every 4 seconds, I would get 24 frames over the duration of the video. So we can do that now. Basically just hit extract frames. And when you do that, you'll see the video name then gets a folder created after it, and then underscore frames is added to the end of it. You'll see, because I've turned on GPU acceleration here, down the bottom I'm getting GPU processing the batches as well, and that'll speed up quite a lot the extraction of those frames. I tend to default to PNG in terms of the file format I'm going to output, and because if you have JPEGs and you want to do people masking, then it will convert them to PNGs anyway to store the alpha. So yeah, here's the 20 odd frames, and what I'm looking to do with that time separation is think, am I actually too far apart? So just looking at these bins in terms of feature detection and alignment. For me, that's a bit too big a distance. So what I would tend to do is to anywhere between a second, half a second. If you're walking fast, then you want to lower it. If you're walking slowly, then you want to increase it. So 1 frame a second, extract the frames, and then that'll give me 97 frames. Also, what I'm looking at when this number is at 97, I can see down here, this is the total number of, if I just set this to the standard extraction extraction, yeah, 766 images is what I'll get out from these frames. So this can get very large, you can get up to thousands of images, and I'll show you a couple of examples where I've run through this. So the next thing you would do is try people extraction. I've got a shorter video to kind of go through some of the. In the shorter video, I went through a little section of that, but I'll go through over it as well. It'll take a little bit of time, so I may pause it to run through. First thing you want to do for people extraction is in your settings, you're setting it to all people and things they might be carrying. I tend to have bicycles on because people are wheeling or cycling past, and I kind of leave everything else off. Have a play, see how it works for you. The model, I tend to leave it precise or accurate for speed. So say if I set it to accurate, I'm going to be really fairly confident. This tends not to go low for 50%. And the mask size will go to a negative value or a positive value. And what that's doing is essentially dilating or expanding the mask around the person, just to make sure we don't get gaps, like where the hats are, shoes are, stuff like that. And then we've got our mode detections. So standard is basically doing a single pass. Enhanced is 2 passes, so one at confidence and then one at 20% lower than that confidence. It's about 2 times slower because it's looking at distant objects. And then ultra enhanced is 3 different image scales with 3 confidence levels from the original setting, and sometimes it will shift the 360 scene because that's quite useful in order when people are aligned on the edges, and I can show you an example of that shortly. So if I hit go on this, it will initialize the GPU for the first time, and essentially it's going to write alphas into the extracted frames. Now, if you tweak the settings, you don't have to extract all the frames again because it's basically looking at the RGB of the image and then re-embedding its alpha that it's generated for the alpha of the image. So you can rerun it as many times as you like. Potentially, it might be useful to add an option to strip that alpha back out, but because obviously you can't see what you're masking if there's errors and stuff like that there. This gives us a rough ETA, so it's reckoning about 5 minutes to do that. So what I'm going to do is, well, I'll carry on, let it go, and we can talk about something else while that's going, another instance as well. So I found it's a bit of a mixed bag because of the amount of distortion that we're getting in at the top and bottom of the image. Essentially, the training data is based on normal photographs. So when people get distorted, it can fail to detect them. So like these people at better distance there, often I've tried that on ultra and got better results, but it'll just take a bit of time. So it just shows you it's worth checking how it's doing, or even making a selection of frames and using those to do the tests on in order to speed up this process. I've struggled, or with the challenge of trying to get it to be fast enough. I found CPU and GPU are nearly the same. Be interesting to see what people's comments are about what they found faster to run. And I think it's down to the number of batches or workers that it's doing. Whereas CPU, you've got lots of cores, you can run the batches on each core. Whereas with a GPU, that tends not to scale very well, and you've got a possibility of using too much memory up on the VRAM. So I've been conservative with how that's been done on the segmentation, purely not to overload the VRAM stuff. But potentially we can have a speed mode, figure something out like that. But at the moment, I opted for stability over speed. And if this drops down to CPU, or you have this unchecked here, then you'll see it will say CPU masking frame. It'd be worth trying tests with and without to see whether we're actually getting a speed advantage. I think as you get up into the thousands of images, though, that this should increase in speed, but it's a trade-off between obviously the amount of workers and not overwhelming GPU. So that's still going through. We can have a look, see if it's actually picked up. I tend to work like this because I can see down here, okay, it's on 43 frame. I have tried this with birds as well, and it detected a few frames, but I don't think they create much of an error. So you can see there, it's only just starting to mask. A little bit intermittent there. I'll show you some other examples as well, of where the masking has issues. But yeah, you can see this is probably going to need to be run on enhanced or ultra in order to pick those people up. I'll probably, I think I'm going to port this for the moment, because I'll take you through some of the splitting, and I can show you some of the other examples. Actually, yeah, let's go. I'll show you another example on the masking. So it's just a few frames in here which I can drag on. Just walking down the street, and I have a cyclist go past me. So if I set to bicycle off, and then my confidence a little bit, I'll set this to precise standard detection. Okay, running on this. Now this will pop up a warning saying, "You sure you want to do this?" Because it can't find a video of the same name. So it's going to overwrite the files with this alpha. The RGB should stay the same, but just be aware you're permanently modifying those frames. Now you can run it again with different settings, and it looks at the RGB instead of the RGBA. But be aware, if they're an image set on their own, it will change the alpha of those files. So often, in this particular case, that's why I've got this backup set here, so I can copy them back over. So immediately it's doing pretty well. What's interesting, you can see, just got to reload the frames. Yeah, so you can see it's detected the person, but not the bike itself. And so I found, like, if you've got the camera in front of you, it works really well for masking you because you're in the least distorted part of the frame. As you go above your head, it gets to a point where it can't detect, and it's quite intermittent. So also, I think I mentioned on the other video, a better strategy for this capture would have been zigzagging through these streets with the camera in front of me. Because what it means is, because I kept it the same orientation, walk this way, turn around, go back this way, the both ends of the street then became quite obscured with the masks, and there wasn't enough information. Now these masks are quite nicely tight compared to the box modes that we were using previously, but yeah, it can be an issue. So just to quickly show you, if I then turn on bicycle and then run it again, get that same warning. I think it's important to have the warning. You don't have a way back. Whereas if you had the video plugged in, you can just re-extract the frames over it if you wanted to go back to running it without them or something like that. So it starts up a little bit quicker. And so you do get often these, unless you're running in that ultra mode, that they won't get picked up as they're so small in frame. But what we will get in this, you'll see the whole bike now is being caught within that segmentation mask. And that definitely helps remove a lot of the kind of floaters that exist there. So what I think I'm going to do is let this finish masking. I'll export out this little sequence, and then we'll do a solve, and then I'll show you the final one of what it looked like at multiple heights as well. So we've run our segmentation for our masking. Kind of happy with that. It's not got everybody. As I said, I haven't found a model that worked perfectly with everything because of the distortion. But you can add in extra masks if you needed to. So what I'm going to do, I think I'm going to select wide angle for this, which will give me slightly more frames. But I'm going to increase the overlap to 45%. I can scrub through this, just check with that. Yeah, so let's do that. And so what this will do is it will create from the image folder, because I didn't have the video in here, same thing, but just with the underscore split at the end. And then all of those masks get passed down. And so once they're outputted, so that's 120 images, You can bring up reality capture. You can drag the folder or select all the images. So I can just drag it into here, loads them all in. Go to the alignment tab up here, and just going to hit align. What this does is it will feature detect. You'll see here these number of features that's found per image. So you can kind of look through there, and when you see very low ones, you can see, yeah, there's a lot of blank space where the sky is there. And the other thing you can do under alignment, tools, oh no, is it view? Yes. So under the second view, you've got mask, and you can see the mask being overlaid as well. That's kind of useful just to check it's being used. So yeah, it's done the feature detection, which was pretty quick. And you can see naming wise, for each frame, you're getting, splitting it by 12 tiles per image, per extracted image. Yeah, and that alignment will take sort of a few minutes. I tend to work this way, and I'll do a 10 frame test or a 20 frame test before I'll commit to doing all the frames, because this can take hours to kind of pick up. And you can see, yeah, that didn't do very well, did it? So let's try a different split. Let's try a standard one. Increase the overlap to 50. It's giving me less frames. Maybe these were too distorted, but let's see. So what I'll do is I'll just split these again. Actually, I'm going to abort that, because what I didn't have checked on was my clear output folder before splitting. I tend to want this on, and I don't want to do split selected frames, and then just split again. What that'll do is it'll delete the whole folder, and then start outputting the images again. So I'm going to do new here just to clear the scene. See how these are getting on. Yep, so that's run. So I'll just do a Control A this time. It's in. So 80 images this time. Go back to our alignment tab. 9 images. You have to remember that each of these tiles is using the overlap portion to align themselves to each other, and then obviously features that overlap, they're aligning those camera clusters to the other camera clusters. But you have to remember it's all done on individual frames. So where there's a lack of features, like in the sky or something that's blown out, it may struggle to align those particular cameras unless there's more overlap. So you're kind of capturing those areas that have features that can be seen by both of the cameras. So yeah, just be aware that can be an issue. And if you're wondering why cameras aren't aligned, it's because one individual camera is being aligned to all the other cameras. So they're not done in clusters. I think Metashape is a much better way of doing it in reality capture. Okay, so this now gave me all of the cameras aligned. And now what we want to do is a little bit of pre-alignment here. So if on the numeric keypad, if I press 2, that switches me to top mode. You can get to it via the menu here. So on the view setting, you've got top. Those in there, but the numeric keypad is useful for that. So under alignment and then tools, I'm just going to clear the bounding box because I don't need it in the region. And then I'll do set ground plane. So then I will rotate this, because I know that's sort of street buildings on either side, into the middle. And then I'm going to see, yeah, you'll get like a slope and another one. So just want to make sure these are nicely lined up. And then it's always a bit hard around to capture to see where the middle is, but you double click, that sets your pivot. That can be quite useful. If I left click on it and then drag further away, I get a less sensitive turn. So I'm very close, because obviously the pixel distance is bigger further away you are, so it makes it a smaller rotation. Okay, so got that there. Center. Yeah, that's good for now. So you can save this. I tend to just skip saving it because I don't need it once I know the alignment's good. You can do an inspect on here, and you can set to like point cloud uncertainty. So closer you are to these cameras, the better aligned they are, and it gets much diverges further away you are. Obviously, that can be sometimes kind of useful to see, but it's pretty happy with the camera relations we've got there. Okay, so let's turn off the inspect. Under alignment, we're basically going to export the registration. So if I hit that, and what I'm going to do is just call this masking demo frames. And if I hit save, that, it won't do that. It will think it needs to go into the folder, so I have to do .csv. And you'll see internal external cameras. That's all the settings got here. I think it's defaults. So that exports a list of the cameras. Then we want to export out the point cloud we've got here. Obviously, you get a denser point cloud the more cameras you're using and so on. This one's a little bit, it's not very dense. So you actually click on point cloud under the alignment tab again, and then same title, but I'm going to do .ply. Save here. Main thing is make sure export ASCII is set to false. I think that's the main thing we have to change. And then we OK that. Okay, so if we go back to our folder, we'll see we've got PLY and CSV, and then we're going to pick masking demo frame split. So those are the images that we use to do the alignment. That's the list of all the cameras for that alignment relative to the cameras, and then this is the point cloud that was generated from them. So we then bring up Postshot and we just drag these in. I tend to just turn off the limit image size, and under advanced I turn on treat 0 alpha as mask, and then leave these for the defaults and then import basically. So this will, because we've done the camera alignment in reality capture, and a reason for doing it in reality capture is that you can align a lot more cameras than I think it uses Colmap in Postshot. You can run out of memory quite easily. So you'll see Gaussian Splat starting to be generated. Obviously, the trainings are very low. Once it gets, a few minutes in, you'll start noticing whether this is going to go pear-shaped or not. Now, because this is a small section, you'll notice then that because I was walking this way, this is the mask area that I was talking about. So if I zigzag down this street, I think that would have given me a much better result. But I'll show you the final one where I had multiple heights as well. But I tend to do this just to see how the alignment's doing, how much cleanup I might need, should I go more aggressive on the masking, that kind of thing. But yeah, there's not enough cameras to do a full solve. Obviously, time-wise, I just wanted to kind of get you the sense of, I tend to do this as the test on a smaller amount of data because I can get it through quicker, rather than coming back the next day or however long it might take, and then going, oh, that didn't quite work. But yeah, you can see the camera clusters in here. If I turn off the point cloud and the cameras, and also where the grid is, see that's our aligned point cloud as well that we did in reality capture. So it's useful doing it there. You can do it in Postshot. It's got better at it, and so I kind of figured out its little foibles. But yeah, that's how we get from that in there. So what I'll do is show you my final results. Says on court, and then I'll stop this training. Do a new scene because if you drag and drop it, load it in. So I'll show you the cameras here. So you can see I did above my head 3 rows and then came down and did a lower section as well. So it's only really this area. And of course, if I had a longer stick, I could have got a higher value up here to try and get some of these rooftops. Something that's on the purchase list for things to try out with this. So if I turn off this junk, and this I haven't done any cleanup, it needs cleanup doing, but yeah, this gives you a fairly good sense of the detail they got. And this is only on a 5K, and there's a lot of people walking in between. So it worked fairly well. Just needs a bit more cleanup in there. And this is, for something if you're just a street, you wanted to have assets for, it's not too bad. Obviously, I could spend longer around each shop, but I wanted a general capture of the street rather than sort of getting too much in one go. Okay, so I shall show you some other examples as well. And the people masking, oh, that's okay. I've merged in that. That's quite funny that just, yeah, I do like that. You can just merge them in together with two different radiance fields, and yeah, you can kind of move them around, sort of merge reality in. This was part of a sort of bigger building set. I quite like this caravan, so I sort of wanted to give that a go. Capture. Right, so I think if I just turn that one off, yeah, there we go. We can have them in the same scene. So this was using masking. I can show you some of the frames for it. Now, it was a very quick capture, but I had, just to kind of make you aware, there were two clusters of people, this group here and this group here, and they did not move throughout the entire capture. So it just created holes, really. So it's not a magic bullet. You need data to exist where the capture is. It just creates less sort of solid people there. So if, let's reset this now, I'll show you the one where I'd only done masking on myself. And so they came out a lot clearer, and that may be what you want to do. And you can just turn off that alpha masking to do that. But it's a bit annoying that they didn't move. I guess they're on a lunch break or something. I don't know. I was capturing this. But what was interesting on this one, when we go to frames, I think this has got, yeah, masking on. What I was kind of amazed was it actually masked my reflection in there in certain cases as well. So you can see in this one, what I probably could have done was the bottom masking for myself is the additional one. Um, because sometimes, like I said, it'll find you and other times it won't. And if you find lots of areas getting selected, then you want to turn up the confidence because it's basically going kind of half sure, then yeah, make it all a mask. That's not really what you want. Yeah, I showed you that successful court one. Other examples where masking that's on ultra, you tend to get more blocks of stuff, so you have to increase the confidence. But where people get distorted, you see down the bottom here, they just end up not getting selected. So it's not going to be a magic bullet, but it can be quite useful for those people just walking past to mask them out. And you can see it's got a lot of the people, but not everyone. I mean, you can edit those files, add an extra Photoshop mask if you're really concerned about it, uh, but the manual masking will allow for that as well. So that's just basically a kind of walkthrough in terms of the workflow. I'll show you the cameras on this as well. So again, I did two heights on this. And I think, you learn each time you do a capture. So this I would have done the bottom height as well, because really you're trying to capture every angle of the reflection that's on this. So you see I've only done this top height value. So it doesn't quite work. I'll go back and redo this if I can. This is actually a little hairdresser's, I think. Salon. But yeah, this whole area, came out quite nice for just this set of cameras in here. So it would be interesting, as always, the further away you go, the more it falls apart. But to go and capture this whole area would be an interesting challenge to see how many images I can process. So yeah, this just actually I'll show you a couple other things as well. So that's how you do the splitting. For cube maps, I shall show you. Got these photos here, which are quite useful. Just trying out different resolutions. This one's really useful because essentially it shows the cube mapping as a lat long image and the distortion you get from it being mapped onto the sphere and then back out. So if I just extract this one frame, actually I don't think that'll work because they're not named numerically. So if I just do split all images on cross here, so you'll see that front one is being mapped there. That says top, and we've got bottom there. You can see how this is being mapped out correctly now, and so you get a proper cross. There was a bug I mentioned previously about this. And the other thing you can do, of course, is this seam offset, so you can move this around. And if this is in 90-degree settings, do a split, and you'll see the left one is basically which is where the front usually goes. So this is quite useful to kind of show you how seam offset is working as well. And that's the same thing where those cubes are going to be mapped to. Works same for strip as well. Another thing you can do if you need the individual images for these, you can just click on Save Individual Cube Frames. That's quite useful. And also masking is going to work with this as well. So see, it's just outputs these. And also these are different resolutions, the original source images. So if we look at these, we've got that's 3,800, that's 7,680, that's 8,192, 6,080. So it preserves the resolution all the way through, and this is with the individual cube frames on. So you'll see this is 1K, 13K, well, 1300 pixels, 1280 pixels, and that's a 633. So each one of those cube map faces will change or stick to the original video resolution. I'm not introducing pixels that aren't there, basically just preserving the ones that are. So you could up-res the stills if you needed to sort of go down that route. Yeah, so just to show you the bottom mask as well, if I turn that on, when I do that, it's going to remember this for this session, but not beyond that in terms of the mask setting. But you can just type the number in if you needed to. But you'll see it actually splits the custom mask cube map across. So I've got those are the presets, and then it just creates a temporary new preset in there as well. So if I ran this, then you're going to get a bottom mask introduced. So go to frame. Yeah, you'll see that alpha is now embedded in there. Any alphas that are in the original images, they will pass through as well, and you merge the two alphas together. So I think that's quite useful. Cube mapping. And yeah, same thing for this. This will work on the split as well. Actually, because I switched that, splits off, but you can kind of see how the mapping works. That long image as well. Yeah, there. Yep, that's kind of it. And obviously we've got selected frames, run through to show you like the alpha as well. So I've got these test images, all with alphas done. What I can do is actually turn on the bottom mask here. And you can change the mask opacity as well, which is quite useful. And step through, check frames, etc. So if I ran this one, just to split them, what's going to happen is I'm going to get my bottom mask, but also preserves the masks that were already embedded in the images, and they're all getting mapped out to the sphere, basically, as well. So yeah, some of them are extreme masks. It's really just a set of data that I use to test that it's being preserved as it goes through. And also just another thing on masking. So this raising camera one's quite useful. So I'm just going to set this to 0.5, extract 12 frames out. And all I'm doing in this is I'm holding the camera out in front of me and then raising it above me. So you'll see as I'm here, the camera gets lifted up and then goes to the bottom mask there. I'm just going to set this back to standard. I'll run the segmentation on this. I'm going to set it to enhanced, precise. Leave those as they are. Just run this. Again, you'll see the GPU message down there. But you can turn that off just by using the uncheck the use GPU acceleration. Depending on your hardware, it may work out faster one way or another. It's worth having a test of that to check. So these are our frames. You can see that mask is working pretty well. Just let that finish. You can drag through here as well, and essentially it's reloading that image, so you can kind of check visually in the GUI if that's working. But as this raises up, it will essentially not mask me. So obviously it's still finishing there. But yeah, that's an issue in that because of the image being distorted and the training data wasn't distorted, that's why you're seeing these kind of discrepancies. But you can still mask and add another mask in there as well. So you'll see, yeah, last 2 frames, don't get it. So what you could do, say we're set to the standard one, you basically split all the frames. And as I was saying, the alpha that's in the extracted images is being preserved and then pushed through to the splitting. So that's split all the way down there. And what I can do is turn on vertical masking. Pop that over. And you'll see the last couple of frames, you see the maskings there, and then we didn't have any. So what I can do is, if I turn on split selected only and uncheck clear output for splitting, I basically can do frames 11 and 12. And because I'm not clearing everything out, I'm only going to merge in 11 and 12 into this folder with this mask. So if I just run this now, you'll see the manual masking is being added just over myself. And if I then say I change this scene, say I do something crazy like this, if I run this again, I won't be masked. So this mask has to be over what you want to mask in the preview here if you do a scene offset. Just be aware of that. So you'll see the mask is next to me, but I'm not being masked. So obviously, if you move the scene, you've got to move the mask. And that's very easy. Just push it over to there. And then I can check that other frame. I'll come across a bit. Yep, and then I can run that again. So you can overcome with manual masking issues where the segmentation masks are not working. So this is now offset. Now, technically, the cameras would shift around because that offset has only been introduced in the splitting files for those 2 frames. But honestly, I don't think it's going to make that much difference. It will still work because it's going to use the features within the image to do that detection. So there's that mask in there. So yeah, just to give you an idea that when you raise the camera above you, it's likely to cause some issues in terms of doing those solutions. So I hope this more in-depth video has been useful to kind of introduce you to Gaussian splatting. And please put any questions or issues you might have as comments on the video, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks very much.